Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Kevin Gregg Show. This is a show that's designed to help you reflect, rebuild, refresh, reinvigorate, reinvent your life. We cover a whole bunch of different topics on this show: art, Christianity, business, history. We're touching on at least three of those topics today. Um, we've actually got somebody that's joining me on the show today to have a conversation. Say hello to everybody, Patrick Quinn.
Hey, everybody. Good to
Hi.
be here.
Glad to have you here. Patrick's
Yeah.
here for special reason. Patrick and I have known each other. We've worked briefly some projects,
Mhm.
and Patrick reached out to me via Instagram and said that there was some stuff that he was going through and trying to investigate. And because I've got this forum with the Kevin Gregg Show, over the years, I've had situations where I've been able to have one-on-one conversations with the clients or students. Patrick was courageous enough. I said, "Hey, man, let's have this conversation in this format, so that this way, at least as long as we're having the conversation, there's the opportunity for other people to listen in." I'm sure that there's probably some stuff that people are identifying with, because when Patrick reached out to me, some of the things that he was talking about, um, I kind of deal with students and people on a pretty regular basis. So I said, well, let's do in this format. So first and foremost, Patrick, uh,
Yeah.
thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah. I'm excited to get your wisdom on this and just talk about it. And if it can help other people too, that's just wonderful.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to sort of talk through this and investigate and figure it out. I've let Patrick know I'm not a therapist or a psychologist or any of that stuff. I'm just a guy that's been, hacking and figuring this stuff out. And more than anything else, it's an opportunity for the two of us to be able to talk. And, do I think that we're going to have the best and perfect solutions going over this? Nope. But we can get there at least a little bit in a way. So, Patrick, why don't you do this real quickly?
Yeah.
Could you just tell people what's your general background? What do you do in general?
Yeah. So for the last coming up on 10 years, basically about halfway through college till now, I've been a live performer and done everything from stilts to dancing, acting, puppeteering, stunts, and just a whole ton of live performance.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed to find some really fun shows and just places that I wouldn't have imagined would have ever taken me as a performer. And uh, I've been hired places that will teach me brand new skills that I never knew.
Yeah.
Got hired for one job that taught me jumping stilts, another one that taught me Bigfoot stilts, another one that taught me to ice skate, another one that taught me how to do aerial silks, and just yeah.
Whole
So
bunch of cool stuff.
yeah. And I mean, the eventual goal is to, you know, get one of those jobs in such a regular way that my family can be supported and I can be present
Yeah.
for the majority of the time.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple of questions as we do this. Was
Sure.
this you getting involved in performing arts? Was this something that you always did, or was it something that you happened to stumble into?
Yeah, I remember at the end of elementary school, I hadn't really done much. I think maybe I was in a Christmas show at my church or something at one point. But going into high school, junior high specifically,
Hmm.
I remember seeing on the list, I was late registering, and I remember seeing on the list, oh, there's theater. You can do drama. I didn't know you could do that as a class. And I'm so excited because I thought all of high school was going to be boring. And I was like,
How and
oh,
how old,
man.
how old were you at the time? Like 14, 15? How old do you remember?
Yeah, I don't know, sixth grade going into seventh grade.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. So, I mean, that's even
yeah,
younger, man. Absolutely. So
yeah.
crazy. Okay.
And I remember going, man, I'm registering so late. Everybody is going to have already signed up for theater, and there's going to be no room for me.
Yeah.
And little did I know, the majority of people did not want to stand in front of people and make fools of themselves. So,
I'm telling you, it's the world's biggest fear, right? Standing up for
yeah,
public speaking. It's huge. But
yeah.
well, and did you have a knowledge of what theater was? I mean, had you seen like
Hmm.
videos, or had you seen live shows before at that age?
No, well, not much. Let me think if that's the truth. I had seen a lot of movies, obviously, and I
Sure.
loved watching. Oh, I don't know if my timeline is right here, but I think Lord of the Rings and Pirates 1 were already out, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
And I remember watching those, and I wanted to be Aragorn and I wanted to be Jack Sparrow. And so I would dress up as best I could to look like them, and then just stand in front of the TV and try to like, make my face move like them,
Okay.
try to
Okay.
shape my voice to
Gotcha.
say things like them. And so at the first teacher parent meeting, when my mom came in, uh, all of the parents knew my mom as the mother of Smeagol because I was always doing the Gollum voice. And that was,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So that was your thing, man. So you're like you're doing this stuff, right?
Yeah, it was just a ton of fun. Yeah. And so from there, I just did every show I could in high school and junior high.
Yeah.
And then people had always told me it wasn't really a viable career.
Sure.
And so I actually went from high school into college with the assumption I'll do theater on the side, but I'm going to study this other passion of mine, psychology.
Okay.
And so I started down the road to be a psychiatrist. And I got a couple of years into it, and I was like, boy, this is dry stuff. Like, I know that I will enjoy the job once I'm there,
Sure.
but a lot of I mean, to be a psychiatrist, you need a medical degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going to be done with my education until I was 30 on the plan that I was looking at. And I was,
Right.
boy, I never did well in school. So I was not excited about that. And a girlfriend at the time was working at one of the theme parks around here. And she recommended that I like just to let that artistic side out, like go back and try doing what I love, even if it's just for fun on the side, just because it'll recharge me. And I got hired for a job there, and it just from there, it just sort of was a snowball.
Mm-hmm.
Where it sort of took me by surprise. I looked up and I'm like, oh, my first paying acting job was 3 jobs ago, and I've come so far to a place where I didn't think these people would ever hire me.
Yes.
And
Right.
it just kept climbing. It was, just amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's something else, isn't it, when you start getting that affirmation, when all of a sudden, and it's an interesting thing that I talk about with people, which is, there is something like when you're getting not that money is the be all end all for it,
Right. No.
but there is something when you're literally getting that money and somebody is saying, oh yeah, no, you're absolutely worth this, or you have that value, right? You have that thing, and you just kind of
Yeah.
go, oh wow, this is worth something, and somebody's actually recognizing the value in it.
Yeah. It's
Um,
amazing.
just question for you. Did you so obviously you were interested in that. Did you ever consider at some point about psychology instead of being a psychiatrist? Because I understand the psychiatrist part of it with, being able to administer
Mhm.
drugs and all that. Did you think about just being some sort of a therapist, like a family therapist or anything? Or
Yeah. I've considered, and around the time that my performance career started picking up was about the time I was really considering going that way. And I remember talking to my dad and saying, hey, I'm going to just take a semester off of school, and and just try to go full bore on being a performer. And if
Mhm.
this doesn't work, then I can say, hey, I gave it a good try for a little
Sure.
bit, and I can keep doing it in the background of whatever else I'm doing for fun, but I'll be able to feel good and let it go. And then I'll go back and I'll probably try and be a teacher or I just forgot the word.
Therapist?
Therapist. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. I've always loved that. Talking to people, trying to understand people, see where they're coming from.
Mhm.
And
Is there
yeah.
is there an element of that that's I wonder if there's an element of that that's expressed in the performing as well. I
Yes.
mean, please expand on that for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. As you were saying it, I'm like, uh-huh. um, so when I've been allowed to originate roles, a lot of times in the live performance roles I've done, I'm just performing something else that someone else has already done, and they just want it in a different format.
Right.
But when I get to originate roles, I love to base it off of multiple people that I know.
Hmm.
And so I sort of use it as an excuse to go and just hang out with that person that I haven't seen in a while and just like talk to them and get to know what's really bothering them here and now. And yeah, there's something about just talking to somebody and learning what's the most important thing to them right now, or what are the most important things to them right now, and then finding those. And it just feels, even if it's not necessarily directly precious to me, like knowing that it's precious to them makes it feel so much more valuable, that then I love to take those little gems and put them into a character that I'm building.
Sure.
And you just sort of, boy, this is the first time I'm articulating this, because it's something I've always just done internally. I just love doing it. I didn't really talk about it.
Great. And I'm glad that you're doing it so that you have a record of it for yourself, because this is super, super important to be talking this out loud. So keep going with that flow.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, talking to somebody, finding what's important to them, bringing it out and taking that little gem and then trying to build a character around that, like saying, all right, what's the most important thing to my dear friend over here, or my family member, somebody that I care about. I don't usually do it with somebody unless I care about them. Because again, I like it as an excuse to get closer with them. And then you take that gem, you build a character around it, and then I don't always tell people if they're the one that I'm building a character around. It depends on how it ends up coming out. But then over the process of preparing for the show and practicing and getting in character, I really just sit and I try to sit in their shoes and just think, boy, this and this and this, I bet this is also really hard. And then I try to come and meet them where they're at in that thing if I can. And in a lot of those situations, it has gotten me way closer to the person and understanding where they're coming from. And I don't want to be so audacious as to say that I help. I think I would leave that to them, whether or not I helped, but it helped me understand them better for sure. And it helps me understand myself as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like, and again, these are just broad strokes that I have right here.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's at least a therapeutic element that's involved in performing for yourself. There's something when you're in it and you're doing it and you're feeling great. I mean, obviously, if you're not having to replicate a role, if you're originating something, there's something where you get to do a little bit of internal work. You get to do a little bit of trying to understand other people. And there's something there that's satisfying for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very satisfying. Yeah.
So let's do this real quick. Let's just pause that for a moment.
Cool.
Let's take a look at the main thing of what was it. You touched on it briefly when we spoke about it. What was the thing that made you reach out to me specifically?
Yeah. So specifically reaching out to you, I've been doing a lot of auditions lately and looking at the breakdowns and the audition boards of just the projects people are putting out there. There are certain things that a majority of people would likely strongly object to or be okay with, like nudity or kissing, or those are, I guess, some of the primary things that they'll like break down in every audition. But there are a lot of other things that are, I mean, I'm a Christian, so there are a lot of things that I want to remain true to God, and stick to the morals that I've gotten from Him,
Sure,
and from the Bible. And it's difficult with a lot of these auditions to tell up front whether or not this project is going to put me in a position to jeopardize what I believe.
Okay.
And
which, by the way, just to let the listeners know as well, Patrick and I have had a little bit of a pre-conversation with this.
Yeah.
And his situation is not, he's not alone with this. There's a lot of people that I've been having conversations with lately that it's difficult for them to navigate this if you're dealing with the theatrical world or current TV and film. Like, there's things where you're just going, I don't know what to do. Like, there's stuff that I'm going in, or I'm going into it blind, or I don't even have the full information about what the show is. And then being in the middle of something going, oh, hold on a second. This is completely the opposite of what my worldview is, my belief system,
Mhm.
any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just quick story. I don't know if I shared it here or somewhere else, but I think I shared it with you privately,
Mhm.
but I got called into an audition for a commercial years and years, not years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And, the audition was, hey, you get to be in here and we just need you to drop the F word. Don't worry about it. We're going to bleep it out. And that's going to be the funny thing in the commercial. To which I had to go, I'm not going to do that. And they kind of went, no, but we're going to bleep it out. And there was a couple of things that ran through my mind, which were number one, I don't trust you.
You're right.
That's the first thing that went through my mind was like, you can tell me that you're going to bleep it. You can tell me that you're going to bleep it out on American television, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't not bleep it out somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then also the other thing, which I had to tell them at that time, was to say, hey, listen, I work for the Walt Disney Company. I teach religious education. This is just a conflict of myself. Now, this is part of the journey that I've been on, because I've also been involved in other productions when I was younger
Mhm.
that don't have a Christian worldview. And I was in a completely different place in my life where I was like, oh, that's okay, that's fine. But
Yeah.
something happens over time where you start to go, I don't know if I believe this, or I don't know if I can be a part of this. And with me being actively part of it, I don't want to be giving it like the thumbs up or saying, yeah, I'm good with this. Or the
Yeah.
default, which can happen to a lot of working artists, is to go, well, it's just a job, but I don't really mean it. Right.
Yep.
Which is that's
Yes.
that's the biggest thing, right? What's the phrase? I don't know who originated the phrase, right? But if you were on trial for being a Christian, is there enough evidence to convict you? If you were being convicted of being a Christian, is there enough evidence to show it?
Yeah.
And if somebody rolls out the stuff of like going, hey man, check out these HBO and Showtime things that our friend did, and you just kind of go,
Uh-huh. Yep.
so a little bit, so some conflict with your worldview, your belief system, what you're trying to do, to honor God, trying to
Mhm.
do stuff, trying to do stuff where you feel that you've got these skills, abilities, and talents, and you're sort of in this no man's land, right? I
Yeah.
think, I mean, am I putting words in your mouth? I don't want to do that
No.
either.
No, that sounds about right. Yeah. It just feels like, all right, I'm just gonna I have to read every word of every breakdown just to see if there's a hint in there. And if I
Mhm.
don't see anything that looks like it would be something that I would not feel good representing, then I go ahead and submit, and I just have to hope and pray and be like, all right, God, I'm trusting you to make it clear if I'm not supposed to be on this one. And then you book the job, and they say they want you, maybe in the callback script, or sorry, before they book you, maybe the callback script just illuminates a little more, and it's
Sure.
and you see it.
Right.
And so one that's a little bit simple for me to just talk about is kissing. Before I met my wife, I used to be in a show where my character's big character moment is he stops being a bad guy and he falls for the girl. And at the end of this big aerial routine, we dip into a bow and we kiss. And like as a single guy, it didn't bother me to do. I was like, all right, this is fine. I know it's a show kiss.
Sure.
But being with my wife and talking with some family members, one family member in particular who struggled with her marriage with her husband, and she just they had been very very close to separating at one point.
Sure.
And she came to me and she said, Patrick, like I know that you're a performer and that this is like par for the course for performing, and you're the good guy character and stuff, but I can tell you right now, I don't think China would ever, China's my wife, I don't think China would ever you know bring this to you, but it does not feel good to watch your husband kiss someone else.
Hmm.
And just going, oh boy, I know it means nothing for me, which is such a weird thing to say, and
No,
I'm
it's not. I
criticizing
mean,
myself as that, but yeah,
well, and I
like
do, and I do want to honor this, right? Which is, I know
yeah.
that there might be some people like, what's the big deal? What's he talking about, right? And the fact is this, it's like I've done this before in the past where I've been involved in shows or theater where I've
Yeah.
kissed somebody else or I've seen my wife kiss other people, but
Mhm.
I do want to honor this part of it, which
Yeah.
is that there can be, I'm not saying that this is the case for you,
Right.
but there can be the tendency for fantasies or other things like that, or things to well up, and
Mhm.
other things that can cause disruption in the family. Now, there's
Yeah.
other people that have gone, there's other people that have bigger clout that have been able to do this. Kirk
Mhm.
Cameron was able to do this in movies where
Yeah.
movies that he was in, if he had to kiss the person that was playing his wife, he'd be able to actually have his wife come in as a stand-in to
Mm.
kiss her so people
Oh
didn't
man.
see the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get that. So I understand that for people that might, they're just going, oh, come on, he's just being such a prude. But it's also conviction, right? It's a conviction that he has, which
Yeah.
is like going, hey man, I'm trying to honor, I'm trying to honor my wife. I'm trying to honor my marriage. I'm trying to honor this.
Mhm.
And, do I really feel like this is necessary? Now, can I ask you this? Here's just a,
Yeah. Sure.
what would happen if there was an arrangement that was made with, I'm just throwing this out as a possibility,
Mhm.
if there was a thing where it appeared as if it was a kiss, but you actually weren't kissing each other, you know what I mean, where it was like cheek to cheek and all that stuff,
Right.
or is that just too fine of a line?
No, I think that's fine. That's what I ended up doing in that show because I continued
Okay.
to perform in that show for a while,
Yeah.
and we just did a very close cheek touch,
Good.
and
Now,
yeah, and
did you feel, I mean, were you okay with that, or did it feel like it was like going too overboard, or?
no, it was
Okay.
it was fine for me. Yeah, I don't. So it's a man, boy, it's strange finding the lines because also I don't necessarily believe. No, I don't even. I'd have to think deep about it before I would ever say that it is just wrong. I don't think it is. I don't think
Sure.
it is wrong to kiss somebody in a show like that. Um, but I've got all sorts of opinions about what actually constitutes sin in very specific scenarios. We could talk about that later. It's very specific, like weird, wishy washy. But
Okay.
uh,
So the big thing where you
yeah,
are, let me cut to part of this if I can.
yeah,
So one of the issues that you're dealing with here is you're going, gosh, I feel as if this is what I want to do for a living, I want
yes,
to be a performer as a living,
yeah,
for for a living. And yet I'm having to navigate this stuff where I feel like every time it's this crazy mishmash of working through stuff. Is this the right stuff? Is it this? And then I get through certain levels, and then all of a sudden I get to a certain level where, you know, now I've either got to have an uncomfortable conversation with a producer or a director,
yes, yeah,
or I want to make sure that I'm not wasting everybody's time, and it's this
mm-hmm.
big fear of like going, I'm juggling all of these things. Am I going to be known as the problem person? Oh, here comes the person that every time an audition comes up, it's always got
Yeah,
to be, uh, we don't have to get into the, what,
that's okay.
if you don't feel like you don't want to get into this, don't worry about it. What's your agent representation right now as you're going out for these
Um,
things?
right now, I'm actually representing myself
Okay.
because my last uh, agents did not. It's been a while since I've had an agent because I haven't found one that I trust.
Okay. I totally
um,
get that, which is like
yeah,
that was the conversation, was to go, do you
yeah,
have a good rapport with your agent? And
right.
and obviously you're laying down groundwork here, which is, if I am working with an agent, I have to be very, very specific about what
Yes,
I'm doing, you know?
yeah.
And
And
that's
that was
okay.
part of reaching out to you was I was going to ask if you had any, oh, I don't know, any method for approaching a brand new agent with this, and like aside from just like writing up a contract, which is going to scare off most sane people, like right off the bat, like, oh, this who's this guy, and he's coming up with this whole contract of things that I have to do for him. And yeah, is there any Is
Well, I
there a
guess
code word, family friendly?
sure, absolutely, you can. There's
Yeah.
no problem. Listen, when you're dealing with uh, sexual content, when you're dealing with sexual content, when you're dealing with language stuff, when you know,
Yeah.
it's okay to be able to have those conversations saying, hey, listen, man, I'm a practicing Christian and I've got a biblical worldview.
Yeah.
And there's some things I'm going to be, great and no, but we have to have those conversations.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing. We're not going to get directly to this right now, maybe in a little bit in the conversation.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a real big one on proof of concept of what you can do and what you're offering, to where
Mm.
it's an interesting thing, especially when you're a creative, is what are you doing is that you're continually trying to figure out ways that you can create,
Yeah.
and what am I doing and what am I putting out there on a regular basis that then is attractive for other people to go, oh my gosh, I need to either hire this guy or represent this guy or whatever, like
Yeah.
making it as easy as possible. For example, you know, uh, full disclosure, I've not had agency representation for a while. I walked away from agency representation as well too, where
Yeah.
it was I always had difficulty with the TV and film thing because I could never crack that. Commercial wise, completely different scenario. But the reason
Mhm.
that I don't have a commercial agent right now is for other reasons, because that industry is changing so much. I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick and come back to you.
Cool.
That the industry was changing so much, where the balance between union and non-union work was massively different. Where when
Mm.
I first got involved in it, was 70% union work, 30% non-union work. Now it's completely flipped the other way, where it's over
Yeah.
70% is non-union. And I was finding whenever I was getting called out on these union calls, it was just changing. Like the money was changing, what you were going out for was changing. Like all of a sudden I'd
Mhm.
have to do these like last minute, showing up for an audition. And I realize I'm auditioning for a role where I'm basically going to be an extra at, if I'm lucky, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I may have a speaking line, and there's a really good chance in this commercial, because it's really focusing on this pro athlete, you will never see my face in this commercial.
Mhm.
So I had to take a major step back and just kind of go, oh no, that's okay. That's not worth it, right? Like for me, commercial wise, I had to make a big, there was a big shift that happened in my mind to go, hold on, I didn't get involved in becoming a creator, an actor, writer, director, producer, all of this
Yeah.
stuff. I didn't get involved in that to do to just do TV commercials. That's why I didn't get involved in this, right?
Right.
And so I just want to say that with part of whatever your journey is right now, is that it can really feel in this industry like, well, I've got to get the work, and if I get the work and I get the credits, then that's the proof of what I'm doing. And I just want to tell this to you, Patrick, is like, we're living in a completely different, um, everything getting disruptive, a disruptive phase, where as
Yeah.
much as it seems like, hey, this is how you're supposed to make it in Hollywood, kid, this is how you're supposed to do it, this entire industry and media is getting so disrupted on a constant basis. We've seen this with YouTube stars or all the other stuff that's happened in the last 10 or
Mhm.
15 years. And
Mhm.
the fact is, I'll just be blunt here on the show for other listeners that are here. The fact is that there is a lot of content that I feel, I'm only going to speak from my perspective, but there's
Mhm.
a lot of content that's coming out of Hollywood, from mainstream media or other stuff like that, where I look at it and I go, I'm not interested in it anymore. Like I'm
Yep.
not interested in watching your stuff or consuming your stuff, to
Yeah.
where I kind of go, I feel like I want something else. And I heard this the other day on a show from another guy that I listened to, and I thought, gosh, that's so right on it. If there's a one thing that you can't seem to find, right? You can't seem to find it anywhere, then it means you need to be creating it.
Yeah.
It means that you need to be creating it and making it. Now,
I love that.
that's a real easy thing to say. It's a real easy thing to say, but that idea, that ethereal idea, that well, that ethereal idea doesn't put food on the table. It
Yeah.
doesn't pay the bills, right?
Yep.
Now, I want to say just one other thing with this. What it, let me back up for a second.
Yeah.
What what did your dad do? What did your parents do for a living? All that stuff.
Yeah. So my dad works in GPS. I can't go too specific with
No,
it.
no worries.
And my dad happened to be successful enough with this, with his GPS
Great.
technology career, that my mom was able to be a full-time mom.
Great.
And basically, she's just the go-to problem solver in my extended family. She's
Amazing.
so wonderful.
Wonderful.
Uh, yeah, and she kind of just made it her job to be there for everybody. So if grandma fell down and hurt her hip, mom can bring the kids over to grandma's house and we'll just be there with grandma, taking care of grandma.
I love it.
Yeah,
I have to tell
yeah,
you this so much to really, really honor this. I can't say this enough, especially where your mom's concerned. And I had it with my mother too. Um, I'm so grateful for women that are able to be there for their children, their families, and all of that stuff. I know how
yeah,
absolutely difficult and challenging it can be with our current um, finances and all of that other stuff. But
yep,
and this is a big thing that happened, particularly over the last 30 or 40 years. The the stay-at-home mom or the housewife or all this stuff, that role got so poo-pooed. And it's like it is
yep,
one of the most vital foundational things that we have. Like
yeah,
literally the fact that your father was able to have this success with his business and all this stuff to
yeah,
be able to go out and to provide for the family, which is something that you're trying to emulate. Okay, so let's
exactly.
recognize that too. Okay,
Hmm.
you're recognizing that. You're saying I've got these skills, these abilities, and these talents, and I want to be able to provide for my wife. I want to be able to provide for my future family. So I want to
Hmm.
honor that and to go, I totally get that. What you are trying to strive for is absolutely foundational and fundamental to our society. It is. So God bless it. Now, with that said, I just want to say this is that especially when you're trying to pursue something, when you are pursuing a different path
Yeah.
than what your parents have known, right?
Mhm.
It can be a scary thing. And I've said this before in the past, your family of origin, all right, your family can be your loudest critics and your biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah.
They can be your loudest critics and your biggest cheerleaders
Yeah.
because when you're venturing off into something that they have no knowledge of,
Mhm.
that there is no known, and let's get very specific about something for a second, man. There is no none. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There
You know what? Yeah.
honestly, there isn't. I think that there's a generation of people that kind of came before us that were in a different economy and other stuff that was going on, that
Mhm.
this current economy is really topsy-turvy challenging as we try to navigate it. Okay.
Mhm.
And a lot of people think, I remember the big thing that I used to get from my dad was like, well, get your college degree. Once you get your college degree, then you get into a company, and then you have a company, and then you do that, and you get a retirement, and then you're fine. That doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist.
That's good to hear. Because
I'm
yeah, I
just
haven't seen it.
I have not seen it. It does not exist. I think that there's
Yeah.
a number of people that are just ahead of me by probably about 10 or 15 years, that they have seen
Mhm.
it, that they're the last, that it's the last bunch of those people that get to see that.
Yeah.
We're beating a whole new path. That's not to say that you don't plan for the future, that you aren't fiscally responsible, that you don't do
Right.
it. But the system that was established, like going, find a great company that you stay with for 20 or 30 years. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, buddy, but I'll just be frank on this, man. I this is just my opinion. This has no reflection on Patrick Quinn whatsoever. Um, I was loyal to a company for a number of years, and they weren't to me. They just weren't.
Yep.
And that tends to be the same thing that happens over and over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
And so finally, you just get to a point. So I'm just ahead of you on the track to just
Yep.
say, you're in brand new territory, and don't worry, you're in good company, because there's a lot of us that are trying to navigate this as well at the same time. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So your parents mean well. They're literally
Yeah.
just using their framework and their stuff of like saying, well, this is what we had, and why can't you have that? And the thing is, you can't
Yeah.
have it because it currently doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be clear, my parents have been actually very supportive of it. They don't understand it, but
Right.
very supportive. It was that one conversation in college where my dad's like, "Hey, buddy," because at the time I wasn't making money in it at all. I was just
Right.
going for it. Yeah.
No, and listen,
Yeah.
and also to your father's credit, he's
Mhm.
correct. The
Yes.
fact is that I've also been around a lot of guys who, I'll have to tell you, I've seen a lot of 30 or 40-year-old boys in my life. I've seen a lot of 30 and 40-year-old boys that,
Yep.
boy, they sure do love their video games and going out to drink and doing all this other stuff, and
Mhm.
uh, they're doing nothing to plan for their future. They're
Yeah.
doing nothing to establish long-term relationships or start families. And then next thing you know, they wind up in their 50s alone and just going like, what's happening? Why don't people let me?
Yeah.
It's like going, come on, man, you've got to be contributing. Now,
Yeah.
I've gotten way off topic on this. So I just want to say all that. So the other thing too, Patrick, is that you're trying to honor a certain, uh, you're trying to honor your faith. You're trying to honor your belief. You're trying to honor your
Mhm.
relationship with God and Jesus. I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
Um, this is not going to be easy. It's just not, right?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a little bit of stuff. I wish that I could tell you right here. It's just like, don't worry, man. You do the right things. You do A, B, C, and D. Everything's going to roll out. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
You're going to have to juggle a number of things, which include, I know that you've got a loving and supportive wife,
Mhm.
and I have a loving and supportive wife. And we also have to make sure that, are we also doing the things that are also feeding into her and also bringing stuff back? My wife has been outstanding, and she's been so incredibly patient with me over the years. And
Yeah.
sometimes you got to roll up the sleeves. I'll be frank here on the call, man. I've had moments throughout this last pandemic where it was like, yes, getting a little bit of, unemployment, all this stuff, and trying to figure out what I need to do. Guess what?
Yeah.
I've been behind the wheel doing DoorDash a couple of times going, okay, I guess I got to
Yeah.
deliver meals, because I guess I've got to get into at least that groove of getting in and getting out there and working and doing stuff,
Doing something. Yeah.
doing something. And it's
Mhm.
it's it's proof of it's proof of concept of two things. The
Mhm.
proof of concept, and this is not to poo-poo or throw away any of the artistic endeavors or whatever. I always felt this, man. I truly always felt this.
Mhm.
Hold on, I dropped my glasses. I got to get something.
Oh, no worries.
Um, I always felt this, man. We'll just be generic. We'll just be generic here. Where I worked as a professional performer for well over 20 years. It's how I made my living. It's how I pay my rent, was able to bring in, you know, food on the table, all this other stuff, health
Mhm.
insurance and everything. And I was working with a group of performers. And I have to tell you this, man. I'm going to make some very broad comments, and the comments are going to go, "How dare you?" I don't care. Um, how
Good.
dare
Good.
you say this? Um, I'm sorry, man. I'm just gonna be frank. I'm not a big fan of performer unions. I'm just not. Like, I get
Yep.
it. I understand why they exist. I really do. They, working unions exist because somebody took advantage of somebody else and somebody behaved poorly. And I get it.
Yes.
You need that stuff.
Yep.
The other downside of it that I've seen with performing unions is that
Mhm.
people can tend to get very entitled, and they can say like, well, I deserve this, or I deserve all of this stuff. And I get it. Like, you don't want to get abused, but then there's a whole thing of like when you start adding too much cushiony stuff to things. And in my
Uh-huh.
years of performing, and especially this pandemic was just so eye-opening, right?
Uh-huh.
Because it was this thing of where you're getting paid an excellent wage, and then Uh, Granted, you don't have to, you're not performing every single second of the day,
Right.
right? And I get it, because if you're doing it, you've got to take your rest and all your breaks. And sometimes people on the other side would go, I don't get it. They only work so much of the day. Why aren't they working the whole
Yeah.
time? To where my answer to that was to go, hey, how do you feel when you're doing like a PowerPoint presentation? If you have to get up in front of people and do PowerPoint
Yeah.
presentation, they go, wow, that takes a lot. And I said, great. So basically what you're asking me to do is, what if I asked you to do that your entire 8 hours of the day nonstop?
Mhm. And
That's
do a little dance while you're doing it too.
Yes, do all that, make it all that, and get no. But the other side of this, is
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that would get very entitled or demanding or all this stuff. And there
Mhm.
was always a part of me, if I
Yeah.
were king, where what I really wanted was, once a year for 2 weeks out of the year, all of those performers in the place I worked at, I wished that it was mandatory that they either work in food service or custodial service for 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
You'll
Yes.
get your same rate, you'll get all the stuff, but I want you to
Yeah.
work 2 weeks in this department, or, or whatever, to get a
Yeah.
real feeling of what that is, of what real physical, actual hard work is.
And that'll make him a better performer too, actually.
I think so. I think so, because it does two things, right?
Yeah.
You're exactly right. It gives them it gives them access to real people, right?
Uh-huh.
And it gives you a sense of this elbow grease in this work. I
Yes.
I use that as the example here, Patrick, is to go,
Mhm.
there is work involved with what you're doing, and the other
Mhm.
balancing act that you're going to have to be doing at the same time is going, okay,
Mhm.
if there are what am I doing or thinking or brainstorming to myself that can serve as proof of concept, so that I'm just, and it's not like you're trying to prove it to your wife, but it is the idea of like, hey, I'm trying to strive and thrive, and I'm putting in the hours and the effort to make this stuff happen, you know?
Mhm.
And I think it's a real big trap that can happen with creatives, where it can get very much like, hold on, I'm working, you know,
Right. Yes. Yeah.
right?
No, totally.
And it's not to say that there isn't, and it's not to say that there isn't time and space for that. There absolutely is, but we have to be very specific and intentional with it, right?
Yeah.
So, um, I, a lot of that junk that I just talked to you about was the feelings that you're having of like saying, do I encourage you to continue to, okay, great, keep going, keep looking through the trades or online or whatever to see whatever auditions are coming up, and that's
Right.
great, to doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But what are the two other things I can do in the meantime? We're going to get to this quickly if we can in just a second.
Yeah.
What are the things where I'm working on my own stuff and
Mhm.
putting my own stuff out into the world on a regular basis,
Yeah.
so people can see what I'm doing?
Mhm.
Even it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. And then what's the other thing that I'm also doing, where I'm also grinding and also bringing in a little bit of work and some other stuff that can start coming in, that works as proof of concept to show my wife, hey, I'm willing to put in the hours. Or I just interviewed an artist a couple of weeks ago on Your Creative Journey, an artist named Jeff Watts, who talks about sweat equity. And he
Mm.
talks about this. What am I doing where I'm cranking out and I'm spending the time? And it's almost like proof of concept to my wife of saying, I'm trying.
Yeah.
And I want to give you some examples. And I think it's going to come back to some stuff that I know that you've been working with and sort of
Yeah.
entertaining with. One of the things that's been helpful for me was, yes, I was out there, and even though I was earning employment, first time I've ever claimed unemployment in my entire life, ever.
Mhm.
And I didn't like it at all. I don't like it. Sorry, I'm going to take a thing. I'm just saying this to the audience. Um, I think I'm also saying this to performing friends that are out there, that are there. When you are getting unemployment, it is not free money. Somebody has to pay for that. I've paid
Mhm.
for it out of your stuff that you've done in the past. But if you continue getting bonuses or all this other stuff, or all these other unemployment things are happening, that's
Mhm.
not stuff that's happening now. It's a credit card that's being taken out on future generations. You are literally borrowing money from future generations. I'm going to get off my soapbox for a second. So here's the deal. I did not like being on that. So part of the deal of me going out and delivering food and doing all that stuff was just because I wanted to get the physical feeling of like getting out and doing work, even if it was offsetting my unemployment stuff. I've been able to, thank God, get off and do that. But I started doing freelancing writing work that was through companies like Upwork or wherever, where I was like using the past and the stuff that I've done and showing proof of concept of what I've done and seeing how it applies to other businesses who would need my help. Right. So I'm helping a couple of other guys right now write their books, or I've been working with a math company that's been out of Canada, like helping them put together projects. Right.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's cool.
here's a way that I'm putting in sort of sweat equity while still doing stuff that's in my wheelhouse, but showing that I can do it.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I say that because I know that you've shown interest in writing, but also voiceover stuff. Am I correct? Yes.
Yes.
One of the things I got from Patrick when he sent out an email is that he's been interested in doing voiceover work. He ended up getting some equipment and some other stuff. And one of the things that you've kind of juggled with, there was some sort of like there was like tentative, almost guilty feelings that you had about the voiceover equipment. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess going to sort of the beginning of this, before the pandemic, my wife and I were on a very mobile lifestyle. We were on a touring show. And so you can't do video auditions like I had been working on. And I'd made I had made a bit of momentum on commercials and smaller film roles. And then going on tour, that all that momentum is just halted. And that's not complaining, because the tour was amazing and it was great for saving money and touring, traveling with my wife. It was amazing. But part of my head is looking to the future. I want to have a family with my wife, and we want to have kids after we wrap up with tour, like travel the world, save enough money to come home and be able to land and figure stuff out. And we'll be comfortable while we move into that new segment of life. And so part of the fear of that, but fear might be the wrong word, but part of the preparation for that is I need to think of what I can do when we land. If I'm going to keep performing, which is what I love to do and what my wife is wonderfully supportive of, I can go into all these segues. Basically, she's very supportive of me pursuing my dream. She doesn't want me to, like, I've done many grind jobs. Whenever work slows down, I'm right there with you. I hate accepting unemployment. I ended up taking it partway through the pandemic, and it was a difficult moment for me to go, all right, I can accept this. I've paid into it a little bit. I can accept it for a little bit, and then I'll get right back to it. And yeah, it was very similar to how you were saying it. This is how I feel. At any rate, coming back from tour, I have to have something going. And so a concept that came to me was, boy, God put the brakes on all that, and I'm at home. What can I do to move forward? I'm like, well, I can start auditioning again, but the momentum's going to die. Voice acting. Sorry, that was a very roundabout way to get to voice acting.
That's okay.
If I could achieve a voiceover setup that is mobile, that I can put into a checked bag and take with me on the road, I can build that momentum. I can keep it going. And maybe I could start a podcast or start streaming video games. Even if nobody watches it, at least I'll be getting experience with that equipment and getting used to it.
Yes.
And yeah, so boy, I was wishy-washy on that for a while. And my wife finally just sat down with me. She's like, Patrick, we're still okay on money. She's been climbing the ladder at a job, and she was just killing it. We're okay. I can support you, like, while you build this. Okay. And she said, I don't mind if you use as much of our money as you need to use. Just work it, and so that that it's good to have that faith, but it makes you sweat. So
Well, of course it does, because it's the thing. Here's the great thing.
Yeah.
Number one, you basically have an investor with your wife that is saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, I believe in you, and you're going to do this." Okay. Um, the transparency on that is just incredibly, incredibly valuable as you continue
Yes.
to move on. Right. Here's
Mm-hmm.
everything. Let's lay it out. This is what it is as we move forward. Um, and she's kind of giving you the opportunity to go, "Hey, go get it.
Yes.
Go get it. Don't
Mm-hmm.
worry. I'll tend the farm and take care of it. I need you to go out and I need you to do the hunting. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I need you to do
Yeah.
the hunting." Now,
Oh, I
you
like
have
that.
now
That
here's the deal,
metaphor.
man.
Yeah.
You've literally just said a couple of things right here, right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is, and listen, man, this is exactly what I'm doing with these shows. This is exactly what I do with the Kevin Gregg show, or what I do with your creative podcast, whatever. What am I doing? I'm
Yeah.
practicing in public. I'm
Mm.
practicing in public on a continual basis. Even you and I having this conversation,
Yeah.
proof of concept for other people to go, "Hey, listen, this is what I do." Like, I have conversations with people where we help them, we unpack stuff and we figure out, but all of this is proof of concept and continually practicing in public, right? I
Yeah.
wouldn't have got, if I had not, I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. Started the Your Creative Journey podcast with Paul Carganilla last year. We
Yeah.
launched our first episode in June of 2020. And the fact is because I was doing those episodes, I had proof of concept of things I was working on. So when I was on Upwork, I was able to show people, "Oh yeah, I'm currently producing and co-hosting the show." Now, I've done
Yeah.
podcasting before, but it was actual proof so that people could look back and go, "Oh yeah, he actually does this stuff." Right.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden it makes people feel more confident in just going, "Oh yeah, of course I want to work with him. I want to hire him." Right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Yeah.
work together. And literally just you talking about as simple things of doing, whether it's playing video games on Twitch or whatever you're doing the stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just, and limit yourself in that, like put like little pockets of this.
Mm-hmm.
But Patrick, there's also tons of other stuff that's out there that's
Mm-hmm.
available in terms of and believe me, it's low paying at first. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
low paying at first, but there are tons of like independent writers that are trying to get people to record their audiobooks, and they don't
Mm.
pay a lot, but they say, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody to do this. Here's a couple $100 to do this stuff." Right.
Yeah. I
And
would
things,
love to just
okay.
grind through that. Oh man.
So there's things like that that are available online, because
Mm.
here's the great thing. Here's a little bit of the argument back for your parents. Not your parents have been great, but for other parents that are out there, they're listening, saying, "This is a crazy business." I
Yeah.
have discovered more than anything, and this has been the huge blessing that's been wrapped up in this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are so many businesses that are out there that they need people with the comfortability in the camera or being performance. How many of these terrible Zoom meetings have people been involved in where
Yeah.
you just talked about, like, "Oh, I tried to sign up for theater and I thought it was going to be filled up," and nobody went to it because
Yeah.
everybody's terrified of speaking. Everybody's tired of speaking and being on stuff. And I guarantee you that there have been millions, if not hundreds of millions of people that have been petrified that they've been thrown into this Zoom world of like going, "Oh, I can't do this. I'm gonna mute my camera so nobody can see it," right?
Yeah.
So what do
Yeah.
you have? You have the one up where you just go, "Oh, this is fine. This is just a different version of this." And
Yeah.
been discovering that there's tons of companies that are out there that are looking for people that, "Hey, can you read this stuff out loud? I'm not a very good speaker. Could you
Mm.
please record this for me and just say it out loud?" Like, there's tons of opportunities, even with different businesses. It may not be
Yeah.
exactly in the entertainment field, but it's
Right.
using your skills and it's doing the grinding as proof of concept.
Yeah.
So as you go out and you do this stuff, here's the cool thing. Now, what are you doing when you're going out? Okay, I'm doing a thing for this math company or this other business company or whatever. They need people to record stuff. And I've got a pretty good voice and I can record your book. Oh, you've got a
Yeah.
business book, but you don't think that you've got a good talking voice? Great. I'll be the recording artist for your thing. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next thing you know, you start building up this resume and portfolio of stuff that you have, and now it's proof of concept. So
Huh.
people can, and I'm just talking about like foundational stuff. So now what happens is you're building up this stuff. That's the stuff where you can grind now and you can figure out ways to monetize that. And
Yeah.
then as you're monetizing that stuff, this can also build up to you working on your other projects that you're trying to create that are you're more, hey, I want to do stuff
Yeah.
that's in line with my worldview, with my faith, with my ethics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I really do feel like it's all a domino effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's if I hit this one thing and just work on it, like all of the other stuff
Yeah.
gonna fall into place. What do you think when I say all of that stuff? What are there thoughts that come to your mind? Are there halts? Are there other ideas that come to your mind?
Yeah. I love all the ideas. I guess the thing that comes to mind is where do you go to find the place to put in the sweat equity? You know, to look for the guy who's not tech savvy, who doesn't know even how to post, you know, an audition or something. Like, where's the business that you go to? Aside from just building, you know, a social media following or something, and, you know, where people
Well,
just recognize you.
I think that that's part of it. I mean, that
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid by them. I'm not endorsed. I would
Mhm.
automatically say the first thing, and maybe there's somebody that's listening that wants to do this as well. Or if you have more experience with this, then
Mhm.
reach out to me and I can pass this along to Patrick as well. There are sites like Upwork or Fiverr or whatever where you could build
Oh,
your own where you build your own profile and you start building your own example. And there's also job postings that are there for other companies where you just start grooving through it. I'm going to warn you, there's a lot of low paying gigs at first.
yeah.
There's a lot of low paying gigs. But
Mhm.
as you assemble your resume and your profile, and I would say this, man,
Mhm.
this is vital to any creative that's listening to this. You need to think of yourself literally as your own business, right? And
Mhm.
thinking that everything that you do, whether it's your Facebook post or your Instagram post or your Facebook page, eventually down the line, getting like your own, getting your own website. I'm a big fan about getting off those major platforms in case anything were to happen where they go, oh, we're shutting you down, to where
Yep.
you go, nope, I'm actually over here. This is my website where people can come to.
Yeah.
You build this portfolio of yourself and your brand and what you do, you
Yeah.
know, so that people can use it and go back and check your that's literally that's how I approach a lot of the major social media platforms. The
Yeah.
social media platforms, you know what I describe them as? I basically
Mm.
describe them as those are all like highway billboards that you see when
Huh.
you're driving down the street,
Yeah.
right? Oh, there's a picture for this. That's literally how I treat my Facebook and my Instagram.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you know what these are all like, you know, unless it's a personal account or something where I'm sharing just with immediate close friends, but I
Right.
literally post on those things going, these are advertisements for the brand for other things that I do,
Yeah.
you know? So,
I like that mentality with it.
you know,
Yeah. I actually, I've grown, my friends all know this. I've grown very frustrated with social media in general.
sure.
Um, Aside from all the stuff that more recently people have been talking about, to me, it's just, I found I was wasting so much time.
Yep.
You know, like Instagram is just, you can scroll all day and they'll find something to put in front of you.
Yep.
And yeah, so right before we went on this tour, I had actually gotten rid of my smartphone because I was just so sick of it, and I got a flip phone. And my friends all made fun of me
Good for
mercilessly. I
you.
had, thank you. Yeah, I had a stunt job I was doing, and they had us start checking in on our smartphones briefly after I switched to my flip phone, and I was like, oh no. And so I had to end up bringing my old smartphone in and mobile hotspot to log in and then just put it away. But
Right. That's a
oh
good
boy,
practice. That's a good practice. That's
yeah,
actually probably a good practice for anybody that's listening. Great practice of going, how do I do it so that my social media app isn't easily available to me? So
yeah,
or what's a thing where I'm doing where I'm timing it out? And I particularly use that social media app the same way that you would use if you were checking an email or voicemails, right? I check it like 4 times a day, 15 minutes, respond, and then that's it. It's out of the way
yeah,
because it really can be. I always like to describe it as amoral, right? It's neither bad nor good. It's how you
right,
use it. And you
yeah,
can and I think the way that we're talking about it here is you can use your social media as a positive thing. You
mhm,
can use it as a, hey, here's me recording this thing or getting a little bit of a stuff. But
mhm,
think about it as going, oh, these are my little commercials for potential clients that might
mm,
want to use me. What is it that I'm doing or putting out there on social media that is proof of concept for a potential employer? And
mm,
I want to be very specific. I'm going to use a phrase here that my friend Bonnie Utley uses. She does a lot of coaching. She's amazing. But she says this: make sure that the stuff that you're doing, that you're interested in serving versus pleasing. And what I mean by
mm.
that is this: don't do stuff. Again, this is me talking. You can say, forget it. Let's end the call. I'm done
I
with you.
want to hear it. I want to hear it. I'm here for this.
Okay. Serving versus pleasing. It
Yeah,
is the idea that you have abilities, skills, and talents that you can bring that are of service and can help someone, rather than trying to do something to go, do you like this? Is this making you happy? Right?
yeah,
Do you like this? Is this pleasing you? Right?
yeah,
Because if I'm trying to play, it's actually it's a thing that I put in my agreements with people, is to go, I'm not when I'm having this conversation with Patrick, it's not about me making sure that Patrick thinks I'm a great guy. That he, oh yeah, he's a great guy. I love hanging out with him. I, I'm going to be frank. I don't care. It's fine, right?
yeah,
He's a brother in Christ. That's it. We've got that combination. That's amazing. But I'm not interested in the fact of whether Patrick likes me or not. I don't care, right?
yeah,
That's not the driving force for me.
right.
What is a driving force here for me is that I've got something that I can bring to the table that can be of service and help Patrick, and especially having this conversation. It's a thing for me to have this conversation, go, okay, great. Let's have this conversation so that as we're having this talk, other people can listen in on this. And I guarantee you that there's people going, that's me. I felt that way. But great. That's a way to serve other people, right?
Mhm,
So that's what I'm doing in this thing. I'm serving you instead of pleasing you. So that's what I say in terms of
mm,
really check in with the stuff that you're doing and
yeah,
try not to follow. Whenever anybody is trying to follow a trend or follow, like, oh, I think everybody's doing this, I should do this now,
oh yeah,
right? Of like making sure, for example, perfect example with the video games and the Twitch stuff, right?
yeah,
Here's what I say: all right, buddy. If you sitting down and playing your certain type of video game and making some sort of comments and stuff like that, and it's coming from like an authentic, engaging place with your,
yeah,
then that's great. If you're
yeah,
trying to emulate somebody else or trying to copy somebody else's thing,
right,
it's a waste of it's a waste of your time, and it's a waste of your audience time. It'll just feel like
yeah,
a copy of a copy of a copy, right? It
yeah,
just won't feel
yeah,
like the same thing. So I think that that's what I mean by the serving versus pleasing, especially when it comes to putting
mhm,
stuff out there or practicing in public.
yeah,
Make sure that you're not doing something that's just like, I think people like this. You know,
yeah,
if you're doing something to try and get people to like you, and believe me, I've been in program for this for years, so I get it, right?
uh-huh.
Deal with chronic people pleasing. I deal with all of that other stuff. If you're doing that, you're wasting your time, their time. It can only lead to resentment, anger, frustration.
Yeah,
That's the only place it's going to lead to, you know.
yeah,
So let's do this for the short amount of time before I end up closing stuff up with us, because
sure,
I want to do this. Um, what I really want to do is, as we get towards the end of our conversation, it can really feel like and I know you talked about this in your email and messages to me.
Yeah.
We want to do so many things all at the
Yeah.
same time. I want to do this and
Uh-huh.
this and this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, if I was to ask you, like, what is it to really do the easiest, simplest next step for yourself?
Hmm.
What do you think that would be? And I'll just give you this example. I've used
Mhm.
it before on other stuff. When people are learning to do, like, the pole vault, right? When people are learning to use the pole vault, again,
Yeah.
this is a Bonnie Utley example. She's given this before. I think she got it from Stephen Chandler. But um, if we're trying to learn to do the pole vault, and you've had this with your aerial expertise and all this stuff,
Yeah.
what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't come out and give you the pole vault and then set the thing up, 20 feet in the air your first time out and say, go for it,
Right.
right? Because you're going to fail. Like, you're going to do it and then you're not going to know what to do. And then you're going to completely wipe out. And then you're going to go, there's no way I can ever do this.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And so that's the example that I'm using here with what you're trying to do moving forward.
Mhm.
Of all the stuff that we've talked about, what do you think would be the thing that could be, honestly, and if you have to take a moment to pause and think about it, that's fine. It's okay.
Mhm.
What would be the easiest, simplest, most achievable
Mhm.
next step for you? Even something that you could get done in the next day or the next couple of days for yourself, if you're to break it down into the smallest component.
Okay.
If you got to think, then just pause and think. Don't worry, I can edit this out on the other side.
Cool. Yeah. So first thing that comes to mind is kind of simple, actually. This is a little bit too obvious, so I've got another answer past this. Is just to order the blankets to finish my sound booth that I'm building.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I've got the mic and I've got the PVC frame. I'm gonna lay sound blankets over it to dampen the sound so that I can walk in there and it's a professional quality recording booth. Um, Past that, tiny step would be just experimenting with everything I can do with my voice with this microphone. Just get used to this microphone. Just play.
Right. So let's break that down into
Yeah.
something even a little bit smaller.
Okay.
What would be an example of something? What would be something where you could have like a physical, tangible product of what you're talking about? Even when you're talking about like
Hmm.
doing the stuff,
Yeah.
but what's something that you could physically do to have? Because it's very easy to say, okay, yeah, I'm just going to play around with the mic. And it's another thing to be, I'm going to do all this stuff. It's another thing to be like very specific
Hmm.
about what a lot of this stuff is from James Clear's Atomic Habits of breaking things down into the littlest, tiniest things. And when we do the littlest, tiniest things, that becomes achievable. And then we just start doing the next little tiny thing and the next little tiny thing. And before we
Yeah.
look back, we've just done all of this stuff. Okay. So when you
Okay.
say, specifically, I want to mess around and do little voices, what voice specifically is it that you want to mess around with or do? And what is it that you want to have down on, like, recorded? Is it like,
Hmm.
is it a paragraph from something? Is it a certain character that you've been messing around with? Is it a if it, I mean, if you want to be transparent with it, then get transparent with it. What is that?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first one that comes to mind. So I'm a nerd. It's about to show. I was playing a role playing game with my wife and a friend, and we were trying to introduce him and another friend from tour, see if they hit it off. At any rate, I built a bunch of characters for this story that we're telling together, and one of the characters, his name is Billy. I'm Billy, but you can call me Billy. And he's a big orc, and he's the bouncer for the bar. And
Great.
yeah,
Great.
and so I'd love to just improvise as him and see how I can make it sound as professional and crisp as possible.
May I throw a challenge to you?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm going to throw a challenge to you. I love Billy. Billy's great, right? So what would happen? And listen, again, you can hang up the call and say, he's out of his mind. What's he talking about? All right. So what if the thing is to really get, and I don't know what your timeline is over the next couple of days, because I don't want to be presumptive here. I'm going to throw something out. This is it. Watch this, everybody. He's going to literally end the call right now. He's going to say, I'm out of here. Would it be possible for you to, within the next 3 to 5 days, for Billy to play around, do a little bit of improvising with it, and then come up with at least a 30-second bit that Billy does, and then publish that to Instagram or Facebook or whatever that is?
Yeah, that's totally doable. It's like it's weird to say. Yeah.
How do you feel when I say that?
All like not actually like I'm feeling bad, but like I almost feel silly. Like, why haven't I done that? You know, like, yeah, I could. That's totally within my reach. I could just make that happen.
You really could.
Cool.
And I will tell you something. I'm just going to tell you something right now. I'm even going to go one step further, because I'm a huge fan on like going, use what you have, right? Like use what you have. I get it that you want to order the sound blankets and all that stuff.
Right.
I'm just going to tell you right now, don't get too caught up in the big stuff. Yeah. Not joking with you. Like I know there's going to be audio files that go, I can't believe I'm literally recording this on a $20 Radio Shack microphone that I got years ago. Like that's what I'm doing it on. It's like, that's what you do. You just grab it. You just have the stuff. You just go. So the challenge that I would have to you is I mean, if you got to order the blankets and all that other stuff, that's great. That's an essential. I think that the biggest thing here is about the product, about the thing that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something about you in the next 3 to 5 days messing around, trying to find like a little 30-second thing that you discover that Billy is having a conversation about. Maybe it's what are those public service announcements or whatever, right? Whatever that stuff is. Okay. So, but you got to think, this is the improv stuff, but I don't know what, with you messing around and finding something that you could do and then putting it out there, putting it out there 3 to 5 days from now. Right.
Yeah.
And like editing it and doing it and just having it as a little audio clip that you put up on Instagram, whatever. You put it up there. We'll have this thing's coming out on a Wednesday, but once that thing is up and doing, I'll adjust the show notes and then I'll link people to it so they can go take a look at where it is, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I could do most of that today.
Yes, you could. So, I'm not going to push you on it because I want to make it achievable, right? Because there's going to be stuff that happens. Listen, I would say if you do that today and you get that stuff done, this episode's going to be coming out on Wednesday morning. So if you have it done before then I'll have this in the show link. And if you're watching this after Wednesday, we're going to assume that you're not going to have it. It'll be done no later than Thursday. But if you're watching this, wherever you're watching it, whether it's on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute or whatever, take a look in the show notes. So now here it is. Now you're getting to practice in public.
Yeah.
So if you're all right. But I'm going to put a link in the show notes to the example of what Patrick's done. It'll be whatever it'll be, but it'll be a little voice of Billy doing stuff.
You're right.
Does that sound achievable?
That sounds, totally.
Okay.
I love it. I've got a goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is so Patrick, we're gonna have more conversations if it's all right with you.
I'd love it.
Maybe if you'd like to come back next week, that would be wonderful to do this.
I will be in Washington next week.
Okay, no worries.
But it could work.
If it's not next week, maybe the week after, who knows? We'll figure this out. But I would love to track part of your process and the things that you're learning. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this stuff that you've just done here with moving forward. And then we can, Patrick and I have been having some back and forth conversations via email to sort of prepare a little bit for the show. So he's not hit completely blind. He's not completely blindsided when we have the talks. But we're going to talk a little bit about that feeling that you had of just like, hey, that's doable. I can do that.
Yeah.
That feeling is a very important thing, because I think that God puts that in us. And it's like this a little bit of, it's this feeling of like being excited and just going, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want to get to it. I want to get to work and I want to create,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's
You've got me.
continue. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
you've
ahead,
got me
please.
itching right now to get to it. I'm like, oh man, like
Good.
we don't have anything for a couple hours.
Great. Perfect. And guess what? That thing, and actually now's the perfect time to do this once you're finished with me, is to get right to it, just to get to it and start working on it. And guess what? That's stuff that you can use as examples for other things like Upwork or Fiverr or whatever, as examples for other stuff,
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to do. Patrick, let's continue the conversation. For those of you that are listening to this, we're going to have Patrick back soon, shortly. If not next week, the week after that, as we continue and we follow along with what's going on with this journey. If you're listening to this, you're going to see a link to his voice sample. I'm also going to put website things for Upwork and Fiverr for people that are interested in that. Those are great place. I'm not getting paid by them. They're just places for you to go if you're creative and you're saying, where do I find stuff? And I'm going to be honest with you, when you're doing this stuff, when you're starting out to begin with, the pay and the compensation that you get is low at first because it's proof of concept. As you build stuff and start gaining credibility and everything, now you can start upping what your prices are as you do it. And because you have proof of concept and that other stuff that's behind you, other people go, I want you. I don't want to pay for any Tom, Dick, and Harry to do this. I want you to do the job. And you go, great. In order for me to do the job, here's the price, to do it. So there you go. Patrick, what are some of your takeaways from our conversation today?
Boy, well, the first and most forefront, whatever, is working on Billy. Yeah. That's like that's sort of taken over my mind at this moment because I'm just so excited to start into that. Yeah, Fiverr and Upwork.
Yeah.
I've heard of Fiverr before. I've never heard of Upwork before. I'm excited to look. I wasn't even aware. I didn't know what Fiverr was when I'd heard about it before. So I'm very excited. I feel very hopeful. I'm very much a like a working dog or a working horse or whatever, chomping at the bit. Like I want to hit something hard and go and like push and work. And I just sort of have been feeling hobbled.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
There's something that happens when we do just action. Action is the best thing to get out of these moments of feeling frozen or lost. It's just doing something,
Yeah.
And I do believe that God meets us halfway. He just meets us halfway on that journey where he goes, great. That's just what I needed you to do.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, even the fact that you reached out to me to start this conversation was a beginning of action for yourself moving forward.
Thank you.
I want to encourage you to continue submitting for other things. I understand that there's material and stuff out there that's questionable for you. And do I do it? Don't I do it? Okay. You can definitely cross that bridge when you come to it. And I completely stand in support with you to go, it's okay to say no to stuff. It's okay to stand for what you believe in, and to also to be able to voice that, to say, I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to do that material because I just don't agree with it. And it's okay. Like we're going to get made fun of or mocked or accused or labeled or whatever. That stuff happens, right? But the fact is, I would rather be true to God and to Christ instead of trying to, again, please other people, where all that could lead is to just lies, deception, resentment. It just doesn't lead anywhere. It just doesn't lead anywhere good. So I continue to encourage you to do that work where you're out and looking and trying to submit and do that
Mhm.
stuff, that's fine. Um, but you've been given an opportunity, especially with your wife, God bless her, that she's given you the opportunity to be able to do this. And now you've
Yeah.
got the other side of it where you start this process of grinding and doing that proof of concept. And we'll talk about this probably on another call, really being, and I have to do it myself. I'm literally talking to you and I'm talking to myself at the same time, of treating our days and treating the time that we're doing it like work time. And
Yeah.
there has to be that sweat equity that's going on, instead of just like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and twiddle and think and I'm working, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
literally keeping track of your time, being efficient with your time.
Mhm.
And and I only say that because it's going to be proof of concept for yourself. This isn't about trying to like prove it to your wife. Oh, see, I did all this work. See, it's
Right.
like, no, 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 no. I'm doing this work and I actually have proof that I have been doing the work for myself, so that I see that I'm moving forward, you know?
Mhm.
So um, that's it. I'm blabbed enough.
I love it.
Um, let's keep in contact. Give me the link for the stuff once you've got it finished, and I'll have it in the
Mhm.
show notes below. And then we'll keep our conversation going. I'm going to end the actual feed here for a second before so stay on. I'm going to end the
Okay.
official show, but don't boot off. Um, I just want to say thanks to everybody for joining us here on the Kevin Gregg Show. Special thanks to Patrick for being on here. If you are in the same situation as Patrick, hey, would you feel free to share that in the comments so that we can have like a back and forth conversation, which is amazing. Um, a couple of things. If you're someone like Patrick and you've had questions about, what am I doing creatively? I'm not sure what to do. And you feel like you want to have a conversation that's similar like this, like what I'm having with Patrick, reach out to me. You can reach out to me at kevin@kevingregg.com, or you can reach out via Instagram, or you can also contact me on my other social media outlets, which is at locals, kevingregg.locals.com, and also on Telegram. You can see that in the show notes as well. So yeah, if you feel that you want to have this type of a conversation, like the conversation I've been having with Patrick, let's do it, because it can only help other people. So uh, thank you. And head over to kevingregg.com for continual updates and ways that you can get in touch with other stuff to help support the show. Patrick, thanks for being on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been exciting.
Awesome, man. I'm looking forward to our next conversations. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. You're seeing this Wednesday. This is the recorded version. You'll probably see me for a live stream on Friday morning. Uh, we will talk to you soon. God bless. Onward and upward. Bye bye now.